I love the fact that because you're watching this video, that means that you care enough to want to teach better in 2019. So here we go with my top 5 tips for transforming your teaching this year. Okay, tip number 1, rethink the start. Now, I know it's really tempting to start your lessons in the same way, doing either one of the following. First of all, checking the homework from the last lesson, or telling your students to turn to page 78 in the textbook or something like, today we're going to learn about, or just dishing out some kind of worksheet or activity. So here's the thing, if I'm a student in your class, none of those things is making me excited to be there, excited to learn, making me want to engage in the lesson or do anything other than sigh. So here's the challenge, the chair challenge dare. Start every lesson with a question. A question that sparks curiosity in your students. A question that is so gigantic that you couldn't even find the answer when you Google it. A question that links the curriculum to something in the real world. Ask your questions, ask your students what they wonder about the topic that you're going to study. So Mike Beister says, curiosity is the spark that ignites the spark. The future belongs to the curious. We need our students to be curious. We need them to be problem solvers. We need them to think critically about the real world. And if that's what we need, then I suggest that starting your lessons with a question is a pretty decent start. Tip number 2, give your students choice. Chris Lehman says, if you give out a project and you end up getting back 30 of exactly the same thing, that's not a project, that's a recipe. And I reckon he's onto something. The thing is, we generally tend to give our students the same types of tasks to demonstrate their understanding. Make me a poster, make a brochure, do a project, a report. It's boring for you and for your students. So here's the challenge. Leverage the culture of digital documentation that your students live in. I'm pretty confident that your students are perfectly capable of making you a video, a podcast, an interview, a digital timeline, a social media campaign. Just give them some choice as to how they're going to demonstrate their understanding of whatever content it is that you need to assess. And I'm pretty sure that with a little bit of tweaking, you can actually make one rubric to assess all of your students' unique, phenomenal demonstrations of understanding. Trust me, give your students some choice in how they show you what they're learning. They will thank you for it. Tip number 3, take the ass out of assessment. So the Latin root of the word assessment is assedere, which actually means to sit beside. The problem is that all too often in education, assessment looks like us as teachers attacking our students' work with their red pen. And then the students get it, they promptly ignore all the meaningful, helpful comments that you've made in the red pen, turn it over and look at the results. Assessment of learning, done. So here's an idea. Involve your students in the assessment process. Either have your students assess each other's work using the exact rubric that you would be using to assess that particular task, give each other feedback and improve it before giving it to you as the teacher to assess, or instead of making comments with the red pen, switch your comments to questions. Ask your students questions about the work and don't put the final grade on the paper. Make sure that your students give you answers to all of your questions before giving them that final result. This really helps your students understand that assessment doesn't only have to be assessment of learning, that assessment can actually be assessment for learning, that it can be a growth process, that it can be an iteration process, that it can be a learning process. So shift the culture and the language around assessments in your classrooms, and I'm telling you, you're going to develop some serious grit, resilience, some self-awareness, and some growth mindset in your students while you're at it. Tip number 4, quit the curriculum obsession. So if you ask any teacher what their job is, I'm pretty sure that somewhere in their description they will list something like covering the curriculum. But we've all had this experience. We teach and we teach and we teach and we teach, and then we get to the end of the term or the end of the year, and we have to mark those exams and those tests. And as we mark the exams and the tests, we start to slowly but surely slump and eventually sit with our heads in our hands because you're like, I covered this. But there's the problem. You covered the curriculum, but did your students actually engage with the curriculum? So here's the idea. We need to start being obsessed with learning. Has learning happened? Why or why not did learning happen? And not be so obsessed with teach, 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 cover the curriculum, cover the curriculum, cover the curriculum. Because at the end of the day, our focus needs to be on learning. I'm not saying ignore the curriculum. I know it's not going anywhere and it has its place. But we as teachers need to shift our focus to be obsessed with learning and not just covering the curriculum. Tip number 5, stop with the solo and become a connected educator. If I had a rant for every time I heard a teacher say to me, yes, but Lindsay, I don't have time, I wouldn't be standing in front of the camera shooting this video. Or maybe I would, but that's beside the point. The point is, I always see again and again and again, teachers working, slaving away hour after hour, creating worksheets, creating activities for their students, super dedicated, super passionate. But the problem is, a teacher down the corridor is creating almost exactly the same learning activities, but we don't talk and we don't connect. The other problem with not being a connected educator is we get stuck doing the same things year after year after year after year, without having any new inspiration, new ideas, a little bit of stuff to make our jobs exciting, to mix it up, to make it more engaging for our students. So here's the challenge, twofold. Number 1, this year, find the name and contact details of a teacher in your area who teaches the same grade or subject as you and share your stuff with them. Just share it. No expectations, don't even need to get anything in return, just share your stuff and put it out there. And the second part of the dare is this, get yourself on Twitter. There are incredible teachers from all around the world who share the most amazing stuff on Twitter every single day. You can literally take 5 minutes a day, scroll through your feed, get some inspiration, get some ideas, get connected to awesome people, and it really doesn't take a lot of time. And if you're telling me still now, Lindsay, I don't have time to do that, you've just spent almost 7 minutes watching this video, so I'd like to suggest that maybe this year is going to be the year that you can actually take the time to stop being a solo educator and get connected to like-minded, passionate educators from around the world. So, wrapping it up, top 5 tips for transforming your teaching in 2019. Number 1, rethink the start. Hook your students in with inquiry and questioning. Number 2, give your students choice. Leverage the culture of digital documentation and allow your students to create. Number 3, take the ass out of assessment. Involve your students in the assessment process. Emphasize assessment for learning, not just assessment of learning. Number 4, quit the obsession with the curriculum. Guys, let's become obsessed with learning. Has learning happened? Are my students learning? Are they growing? That's what matters at the end of the day. And number 5, stop the solo, get connected. I really want to wish you guys all an incredible 2019 doing the most important job in the world. If you enjoyed this video, click the link below to get 5 free posters to inspire innovation in your staff room in 2019. Thanks for watching. More soon.